everyone, happy late Halloween and Samhain. Today I just want to talk to you a little bit about the seasons and this working theory that I'm starting to form about living according to the seasons and according to the wheel of the year. So as you might know, the Wiccans and other pagan religions and groups and belief systems follow the wheel of the year, which goes along with the earth cycle and with the seasons, and it's a very natural kind of cycle and it makes sense. But the traditional way that we follow the wheel of the year and live our lives according to it goes along with the earth cycle and the harvest and the food and earth and things growing and stuff like that. And that is all good and fine, and it makes complete sense to go along in that way and how we celebrate, each of the harvest and the food being grown and stuff like that. But I'm starting to think that it's almost an outdated sense of following the seasons, because back in the day, not even that far ago, when everyone relied solely on, food and farms and the harvests in order to survive, and they had to prepare for the winters and they had to plan for the springs to plant the food and to harvest the food, and all of that, all of our lives back then was focused on that because that was how we had to survive. And nowadays it's not like that. I don't rely on the farms giving us food because I can just go to the grocery store and buy food. But that doesn't mean I think we should just give up the whole idea of following along with the seasons and living according to the seasons and the wheel of the year. Now that we live in a more modern and technologically advanced time, there has to be other ways to follow along with the seasons. And I'm starting to think about how there's summer and winter, which is, really hot, really cold, opposites, but also part of the same thing, which is part of the earth and the cycle. And I've been relating it to us as humans. Like, we have this mental aspect and we have the physical aspect, and all of that coincides to create us and our spiritual being. And same with the god and the goddess are two sides of one thing. So I've been relating it in that way, the two different sides of one whole thing. I'm starting to form this theory that we can live along with the wheel of the year and according to the seasons in a different way than we used to, but in a way that's still completely relevant and helpful to our lives. So fall and winter are very humbling times of the year. It's when everything becomes beautiful and then dies, and it's this dark time and quiet time, and you can see that every year when the snow falls and everything is hushed and it's so quiet. And then in the spring when things wake up, and in the summer when things are full of life and so noisy but in a good way and so full of light. And I'm starting to think maybe we could live along with that kind of cycle by taking the winter as a time just to be feeling really humbled and really working on our inner selves, and to be really mindful of our thoughts and to plan for the future, but focus mostly on our inner selves and our mental states, being mindful of everything and meditating a lot and working inward, because winter is a time, hibernating. It's almost like we're hibernating our physical selves to work on our mental selves, so that when spring comes along, we can start to wake up, and by summer, we're expressing more of our physical selves by, going out in nature and having fun and doing things and focusing more on celebrating the outer realm of ourselves as opposed to the inner realm of ourselves, which we focus on during the fall and the winter. I hope that made any sense. So that's how I'm kind of seeing it, as these two different aspects, that the winter is more of a mental aspect and the summer is more of the physical aspect, and together, working along with the year and the seasons, all of that stuff just comes together as this whole, and that maybe that would be a good way for us to live our lives, to be able to focus on mental aspects during the winter and then more physical aspects during the summer. And maybe that would be an ideal way to follow the wheel of the year and the seasons within ourselves, our spirit person selves, not anything outside of us. I'm also starting to think about how a lot of people get seasonal depression, like me, it's a very dark time and it's like cloudy and gray all the time and it's snowy and everything's dead. And maybe that's more like of an extreme way of how myself is unconsciously following this cycle by being inward but taking it to a dark place instead of making it a time for me to focus on myself. It ends up being a time that just messes me up. And maybe if I'm more focused and more mindful and more meditative on myself and my being and my mind, that maybe I could avoid the seasonal depression, and maybe I can make it so that I go into that kind of a hole, but more like a hibernating, warm, cozy hole instead of like a dark pit of despair. It's not just something you can just fix by thinking about it, but I think you can work on it during this time of the year when you're prone to getting that way. Maybe you could slowly work on it. And then when spring and summer comes along, we focus a lot more on the outer selves and the physical selves, It's a time when a lot of people decide to start eating better and exercising and all that stuff. And that stuff aside, it is also a time when we are just more active in our lives. We go outside more, we go places. We come from the earth, like the earth is our mother, our home, and maybe we're just like a little tiny reflection of the earth and the cycles, and maybe it's thinking about us as miniature earths going through this cycle, not having to do with the harvest or food, but having to do with just ourselves. That maybe that is how we should be living our lives, following this cycle, working on ourselves, focusing on the more mental aspect of us during the darker seasons, and focusing on the more physical aspects of us during the summer seasons, and overall just having that work really well together to enhance our spiritual being and just live a better life. I hope any of that made sense. It's just something I've been thinking about a lot recently, and how the seasons play into our lives, and I think it's kind of like this revelation that happened. It just started to make sense, and that is basically what I tried to portray here, and I really hope it makes sense to anyone else, because it just makes so much sense to me. But I'm a writer. I'm not good at just talking out words and having them make sense. And if it did, please, leave a comment down below and let me know if you agree or disagree, or if you can expand on the idea, or if you have ideas of your own. I'd be really interested to know about all of that stuff. I'm really wanting to focus on this. This whole season thing is something that just made sense to me, and I wanted to share it with you, so I really hope it made sense to you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next. Bye!